I have to say, this book, The Joy of Pizza, is just so amazing on so many levels. And, you know, before I knew of you from Peter Reinhardt, I knew about this book and wanted this book for Christmas. And I've read the book, but I think it's going to take me years to really digest everything that's in it.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. Because pizza is this such a simple food to understand, but to really get good at producing it, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of thought. And the book was, the first, 18, 19 years of my pizza making experience, everything I learned put into one book.
I mean, it's obvious. I know you had someone, Katie Parla, helped you out with this.
Yes.
You both must have put a lot of thought and time into the structure of the book. To me, it's a book for home bakers, for home pizza makers, as well as professionals. And that's the part, like for me, some of it's a little over my head in a good way because that's what I want to learn.
Exactly. It's going to push you to manage dough temperatures and really think about your product, because it doesn't have to be just applied to pizza, right? The skills and the methods are applicable to anything you choose to produce, right? With the whole rubric where it's an evaluation system, it's really a way to identify what you're trying to create, and then you figure out through practice and science how to produce those characteristics. So it can be applied to a grilled cheese sandwich if you really love grilled cheese sandwiches, and there's certain characteristics that you're looking for in your ultimate grilled cheese. Then, at least name those characteristics, and then it gives you a roadmap for producing your next grilled cheese.
Yeah. For me, it's been trial and error and just barely enough science to get through this because also I have limited tools. We're thinking about moving into a bigger place to produce more. And to be honest with you, I'm a little afraid because I have my ways that I've figured out for me through trial and error, less science. I probably luckily fell into science that I don't even realize.
I'm the same way. I'm not a scientist at all, but I have a strong desire for knowledge. And if somebody tells me you should use this technique or you should do it this way, I don't blindly accept that as fact. I want to know why. Like, why do I need to auto lease my dough? Why do I have to wait that extra 20 minutes to an hour? And once you learn about it, once you read enough books about it and do enough experiments, you realize, oh yes, it's important. That technique makes sense to me. I need to employ that always.
Is auto leasing really important? Because I don't do it.
Okay.
I've experimented with it, but somehow, again, it could be just pure luck. I'm mostly given a good bulk rise. I bake two different ways. One is I'm talking about sourdough. I do an extended bulk ferment, a minimum of 6 hours, and then I do a refrigerated bulk ferment for anywhere between 12 and 24 hours. And then I shape and I bake.
That works.
For me, it does.
That works, yeah.
And I don't have
any bread
ton of
baker
help.
that tells you, no, you're wrong, or that's not right, that doesn't work, then I mean, it works. Anything can work, but can it always be better? Probably.
And that's why sometimes I feel like a little bit of a fraud, to be honest with you.
So do I. We all do.
Okay.
But you're not, because you're making product and it's selling and people are enjoying it and they keep coming back.
That is true. And that sometimes I just wonder why.
Because they can feel the love that you're putting into it.
I think that is part of it. I mean, we are putting a lot into it and we share a lot of what we're putting into it. And that part of it too, which crosses into the marketing side of things, I am very interested in. I I like making people laugh, and I like using this bread company as a vehicle to make people laugh and get my creativity out. You know, having the background that I have in television was, and I still work in television, but it's painfully slow, and you don't always get the opportunities to create. You're constantly waiting. Could be 6 months to 2 years to find out whether or not this project is going to go or not. And I love making content around bread on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And then I have to get over this fraud thing. I really have to learn it. So I am really learning how to make bread.
Yeah, me too. I'm still learning, man.
But
All
one
the
of my
time.
fears, we're looking at a possible location to move, to scale up, to get bigger ovens, more than one oven. And I was in the space the other day, and it was cold. And I'm like, what's going to happen? Like, this could throw everything off for me. Because I've been baking in the same place. I've been rising my bread in the same bucket for so long. If the temperature drastically changes, what the hell am I going to do?
You're going to figure it out. And
Right.
it's scary at the beginning because there's so much that is unknown, but you're going to figure it out. And that's where practice and repetition come in, and honestly, a lot of failure. You know, that first week of baking in that new space, the bread's going to come out completely different. You're going to not be happy with it, but then you're going to realize, oh, the room is a little cold. My refrigeration is a little bit colder than the one that I was using. You're going to figure those things out. And that's one of the things that I love about pizza and bread making is you have to, it's a full sensory experience. You have to be aware of all of your senses: smell, taste, touch, how it feels. You have to feel the room and all of the external factors that are playing into how the dough is behaving. And you're going to figure it out. Humans are adaptable.
Okay, I'm trusting you.
Yeah, trust yourself.
I'll trust myself.
And if it all goes bad, just call me and I'll help you figure out which variables you're not managing.
I'm going to take you up on that because I'm sure
Please,
at some point it's going to go bad. So I read in your bio that you took a trip to Italy, but it didn't go into the details of how long you were there and what you did. That actually is something that I did with my family. It was a pleasure vacation, but we took cooking classes in Florence, and it really piqued our interest and started our Sunday ritual of making pasta together, which led to where we are now. So what was your journey in Italy like?
So I was looking for an adventure for that in that first trip. I just graduated college. I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I was working in a restaurant as a manager throughout college. My cousin was studying architecture in Rome, and on a whim, I booked a flight for 2 weeks and traveled top to bottom, new city each day, and I fell in love with real Italian food. We have a lot of Italian restaurants here in New Jersey that I'd been going to all my life, but the food was so different, and the food was so different from place to place. You know, the food in Bologna was completely different than the food in Salerno, and I just thought that was extraordinary. And it was the pasta that really got me excited. I don't think I ever tasted fresh pasta or gnocchi that wasn't like a lead pellet in your stomach. You know, it was light and airy, and tomato sauce that had a balance of sweetness and acidity, but it wasn't that, you know, that deep, long cooked, super rich and acidic tomato sauce that I grew up eating in New Jersey. It was light, it was fresh, it was subtle and elegant, and I wanted to know why. So then I started cooking immediately, and since that first trip, I've been to Italy well over 30 times.
Wow.
And I still feel like I'm just scratching the surface of that country, that little tiny country. There's so much to discover there.
Now, The tomatoes that you refer to, are they called San Marzano? How do you pronounce it?
San Marzano.
San Marzano. Is that the
Yep.
tomato you're referring to?
Absolutely not.
No. Okay.
No, no. Um, I don't subscribe to the whole you have to use San Marzano tomatoes and 00 flour. Um, those are marketing techniques that are employed by those companies. They've done a great job because everybody thinks you have to use San Marzano tomatoes, but I believe that you should do double-blind taste tests of all the different tomatoes that you could realistically purchase. So I go to the supermarket, and every time I'm at the supermarket, I scan the tomato aisle. I look for a new brand or something interesting. I bring it home. I taste it up against 2 or 3 other tomatoes in a blind manner. I'm not looking at the labels. I don't care where it comes from. I don't care how beautifully designed the label is or how authentic it is. I'm using my taste buds. And in the book, we have a tomato evaluation system where it teaches you what to look for in a tomato. It's sweetness, acidity, texture, the amount of seeds and skins, and a couple of other characteristics. So if you're tasting with these characteristics in mind, there's usually a clear winner, and that's the tomato that you should use, not one from a mythical place called San Marzano. San Marzano's, that area is a very small region, and there's worldwide demand for this product. They can't possibly produce high quality tomatoes for worldwide demand out of a very small area. It's just not possible.
So let's go back. So you come home from Italy, and you're all fired up.
Fired up. First thing I did was make a batch of tomato sauce.
For what reason? Just for yourself, or were you starting to think about business ideas? Because at this point, you were still an employee somewhere, or were you between jobs?
Yeah. No, I was an employee at a restaurant, but it was so during that time, my mom was very sick with cancer. And it was those plates of food and those batches of tomato sauce that brought my friends and family together for me to help me through, because I needed people. I needed people around. I needed the support. And it wasn't until many years later and a ton of therapy that I realized that was my conduit. That was my way of saying I need people, I need support, and it worked. Food brings people together, and I'll never forget that time and the thousands of other times that it brought people together when I needed them.
Yeah, it's also, I think, nostalgic in a way, because I've been thinking about how did I make this pivot and why. And I do think it has something to do with my father's love of food. He wasn't a baker. He wasn't a professional cook. He loved to eat. He loved to cook. But I think there is some kind of connection to the types of things I bake and what he would have loved.
Definitely.
So there's definitely something there.
It, without a doubt, it's a way to connect. And so my mom was a calligrapher. Like, she practiced her handwriting all day, every day. That was her thing. So and it was her work ethic and the repetition that I saw her do as a kid that stuck with me. And I do the same thing. I'm doing one thing. I'm constantly on repeat and paying attention to my last batch and making subtle corrections going forward, and just keep at it and keep going. And I'm able to channel her through my repetition, and it really helped my grief and losing her.
I'm going to ask you the same question I get asked a lot. Does that bore you? Does it bore you doing that same thing every day? Repetition. Yeah, you're tweaking it. How do you feel about that?
I am not bored in the least bit. So I also started by making making pasta. That was my first real thing that I wanted to understand and nail. And that I did get bored of, because at the end of it, I have great pasta dough. I can make all these fancy little shapes, and they're gorgeous. They're delicious. But I got bored of that. It wasn't until I started making pizza and baking bread that it seems like it's this endless journey of repetition, because there is so much to learn. There's so much to learn, whether it's, changing your dough temperature, or your starter feeding regimen, or changing flours. If I change my flour, it'll take me 6 months of trials to really nail it and to make the decision whether I want to move forward with this new flour.
My base flour I haven't changed since I started. I think I got lucky with, I think you use, because I've heard that you use King Arthur bread flour as part of your mix. Is that true?
That's a good one. I don't use their bread flour.
Okay.
Yeah, I use their all-purpose flour, which is a winter wheat, which I like a little bit better for artisan breads because it's higher protein quality, lower protein, but higher protein quality than the bread flour. The bread flour is great though. It's awesome. Both of those products are fantastic.
To me, right, the higher the protein, the better chance for crumb. So for instance, I was originally making my whole wheat bread with a mix of whole wheat flour, probably 40 to 50%, and bread flour and AP flour. I took away the AP and I went to all bread. And I found I got a fluffier, airier crumb, and I don't know if it was a cheat or what it was.
Maybe. You might have also changed something else in the process. You might have also just been so used to handling that dough that you got better at it over time.
Right. That's for sure.
40 to 50% whole wheat flour is going to lead to a denser crumb no matter what, because it's got all the sharp particles of bran in it that kind of cut through the gluten, making the crumb a little bit tighter and a little bit more dense. But you can get a beautiful open crumb with a lower protein flour.
Can you get, how about 100% whole wheat? I know we're getting into the weeds, so for people who don't bake bread, this might be, but we'll get back to the journey in a minute. But with 100% pure whole wheat, can you get open crumb?
You'll get much less open crumb. Yeah, I wouldn't say definitively you cannot, but it's definitely going to be tighter. But you can make great products with 100% whole wheat. I was just at my friend Pam Young did a residency. She's a chef at Blue Hill Stone Barns, and she was making pizza for a few weeks there this summer, and she was doing 100% whole wheat pizza, and it was crispy, it was light, it was airy, and it was 100% whole wheat.
Wow. All right.
I don't recommend it personally because I don't want to eat that on a daily basis. It's not my platonic ideal of bread or pizza. But if it's all you've got, of course you can make something fantastic out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So back to your professional journey. When did you make your move to become an entrepreneur and start your own place?
I bought a failing restaurant in 2006.
Okay.
I maxed out 3 credit cards, borrowed small sums of money from a bunch of people, and bought this restaurant that was pre-existing. It was doing poorly, but it happened to have 2 wood-fired ovens. And and that was one of the biggest successes of my life. Is just at 26-year-old, I don't come from money, and I got the deal done, and I owned a restaurant at 26. It was really a transitional moment in my life. And once I had the space and I had I had a 20-year commercial lease, I had to get up out of bed every day and make sure that my team could get paid and that rent could get paid.
That sounds like an extraordinary long lease. That's not
so
common.
Yeah.
So how did you fall into this place, and Was the location great? I know you said the ovens were really attractive to you. That you must
Yeah.
have had some burning passion, like this is the place.
Yeah. I knew the previous owners and they told me, go come work for us for 2 or 3 years and then we'll sell it to you. And that's what happened. It was pretty crazy that it actually happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long did it take for you to realize this was working?
About 6 months in, it was very busy.
Really?
Yeah, it was fast. And then 5 years later, I'm like, yeah, the restaurant was so busy with lines out the door, and it was more of a just trying to keep up with the pace. I wasn't able to be creative. The place was kind of running itself at that point, and I was bored. So I started Razza in 2012, and I just parked myself there, uh, and and for the first 4 years, it was very very slow, and so I was just expecting maybe 6 months of pain and not being busy, but it took 4.5 years to really get enough people in the door to get everyone paid and to take any money from the business.
So, what do you think happened after 4.5 years? Was it word of mouth? Was there one specific award or mention in a newspaper?
The first thing that I did is I sold the first restaurant, the successful one, because I believed in Razza. I believed in Jersey City. I knew what we were doing was our food was better than the first restaurant. I knew it wasn't realizing its full potential, and it's because my time was divided, um, and I couldn't put the effort into to Razza that I think it needed. So 6 months after I sold the restaurant, it was busy. We got a New York Times review. The review was so good that we've been busy pretty much every day since then.
Now, ultimately, is it you personally or the restaurant that was named best pizza in North America?
The restaurant.
The restaurant.
Yeah.
And was that a shock to you?
Quite a shock. Yeah.
Did you know you were even in consideration? Like, how does something like that happen?
uh I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. I don't know. All those lists are they're kind of nonsense.
But they help.
Yeah. Yeah, they help and they're special. And I flew to Naples, and they had this giant ceremony in a very old hall, kind of like Carnegie Hall. Uh, and I'm up on stage accepting this award. It was in front of the Italians they love this stuff. They love this particular list. And it was a special moment, but it's not the reason why I do it, or I don't do it for the praise. I don't do it for any of those reasons. They're a nice, they're a nice pat on the back, but
Yeah, but it helps with whatever marketing you have to do, and there could be worse things than being named best pizza in North America.
oh yeah, yeah, it's an honor for sure.
Do you have someone a right hand person that you rely on? Because I'm noticing for me, in my case, my wife is that person. There's just so many logistics and so many other things that go into making this business work, um, that have nothing to do with the actual baking. And I could only imagine with what you have going on, and you have a family, a young family, I believe. There must be people in your life that help you do this.
Oh yeah, yeah. We have a huge team of people at the restaurant. Um, at this point, at the beginning, I felt very alone, and I was alone day one. Um, so yeah, we have a team with 3 front of the house managers, 3 back of the house managers. My cousin works for us now, so it's we have a great team. That's my sign of success. Like, I feel successful when when the culture of the restaurant is thriving, when the people are happy, when one of my teammates buys a house or has a baby. Like, that's how I measure success. The more of those moments that happen, somebody can buy a house by making pizza at Razza. That's amazing. But yeah, you gotta start building and nurturing, just like you nurture your sourdough starter. You have to nurture your team, and that's the big difference between successful food businesses and not.
Did all of these people have an interest in food or study baking or cooking, or do you think it's possible to take someone who just wants to be part of a team and a team player and teach them from scratch?
Those are my favorite people to work with. People who just really want to be a part of the team and they have a slight interest in it. We had a kid maybe 5 years ago, didn't have the best time in college. He just wanted a job as any part of the business. He just needed a job. So we started him. We didn't know if he was going to be the right fit for the front of the house, back of the house. So we gave him a few days in the dishwasher and a few days as a server assistant, a busboy. And he grew with us over the past 5 years. He is now running our dough program for all of our bread making and all of our pizza making at the restaurant. He's
Really?
studied this. Yeah, his name's Jonah. I was just with him 10 minutes ago talking about dough. He's learned the science. He's done the work, and now he's crushing it. He understands it very, very well. And those are my favorite type of people to work with.
I mean, that's amazing. I think it's also amazing that you have a dough program.
Oh, you have to. You should see our binders and our spreadsheets. It's all, because bread making is formulaic, right? So whether you make one loaf of bread or 10,000 loaves of bread, it's pretty much the same. Right? It's all numbers.
Which I love. I built our spreadsheets so I could scale to whatever I have to scale and plan my bakes, and I kind of love that planning part. That's pretty cool. Now, your pizza dough, I know you have several different types. How does it relate to sourdough versus commercial yeast? Do you do any commercial yeast pizza?
Yes.
You do?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things about Razza is that from day one, I made that commitment to change, right? What we're doing is the same, but how we're doing it is different. It's one of the ways that we've been able to keep our team engaged is we embrace change. What we're trying to produce is always exactly the same, but how we produce it is always going to change. So we're always tinkering with our dough, whether it's a different flour or a different hydration or a different dough temperature or a different starter feeding regimen. We're always changing it, and it's a way to keep the team engaged, because when they're learning, they are engaged. And when they're engaged, they work really, really hard. There have been times at Razza where we've been completely sourdough, no commercial yeast. There have been times where we add a small percentage of yeast in combination with the sourdough. We've for about 2 years, we did side-by-side batches because our mixer at the restaurant was so small that we would have to do 4, 5, 6 batches a day of dough. So it gave us 4, 5, 6 opportunities to try something new. And if one didn't work out, no big deal. We'll just throw it out and move on. But it gave us that opportunity to try something new. And I completely embraced it. So we would do side-by-side batches of a naturally leavened dough versus a naturally leavened dough with just a minuscule amount of commercial yeast. We're talking 0.05% of yeast, not even 0.1%. And so commercial yeast is a beautiful thing. It provides gas production. It's bred in a lab to be a good gas producer. And that makes your pizza a little bit lighter, airier, crispier, and lighter at the same time. I look at pizza dough very similar to baguette dough, because they're very similar products. And I've done side-by-side baguettes with naturally leavened versus starter, but also with that tiny bit of commercial yeast. And I always like the one with commercial yeast more because it's easier to chew through. The texture is better. It's lighter. It's airier. And the crust is thinner and more eggshell-like, if that makes sense.
How about the amount of oil you incorporate into pizza dough? Does that matter?
It depends. I personally use 0 oil in my dough.
Whoa.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Don't tell me you use sugar, right?
Oh my God. Are you serious? Is that a serious question?
As a 100% serious question.
Oh, no. Yeah, no sugar. Never.
Are you serious?
Never. Dude, flour is starch, and starch is very complex sugar, right? So why would I add sugar to something that already is sugar? I'm just going to break down those complex sugars into simple sugars. That's why, one of the many reasons why I auto lease, because auto lease, which is a resting period where you're just mixing the flour and water together. But what happens is the enzymes that are naturally present in the grain activate and start converting the starch into simple sugars.
Okay. Don't you think that most commercial pizzerias around put sugar in their dough?
I think many do, because sugar fundamentally tastes delicious to humans. So a dough that is a little bit more sweet, people might like. It's the same thing with salt. My salt content for all of my breads, all of my pizza, for the rest of my life will be 2%, never more.
Got it. All right, I'm learning a lot of new stuff today. I'm going to have to put this into action.
Just put it into action slowly, one thing at a time. Because if you change too many variables at once, you'll never know what worked and what didn't work.
Yeah, no, I'm going to give that a shot. Now, there seems to be a craze in America on baking pizza at home. Tom Gozney, right? Well-known pizza maker. Do you happen to know him personally?
I do. I had lunch with him last week.
No way.
Yeah.
So he is like the guy, right? And he started the craze with the Roccbox.
Yes.
It's a pizza oven that I have that in 20 minutes goes up to 900 degrees. Allows me to cook a pizza in my backyard in 90 seconds. And now other people are kind of copying it. And there are some great ovens out there, right? So anyone could have the equipment for a reasonable price and make a good pizza.
Yes. Yeah. Typically, the more you spend on the oven, the higher the quality is going to be, but not always. The Roccbox is great. Uni has some great products. Their higher end oven is one of my favorites. It's the Uni Caro 16. I love that oven. I bake on it all the time. Gozney has the Dome, which is probably the most beautiful home oven I've ever seen in my life. I'm waiting on mine to be shipped. I can't wait to bake in that one. But I love it. There's so many of these high temperature ovens available for the average person. But don't get me wrong, you don't need a high temperature oven to bake a great pizza. You can do that in your home oven. So if you're thinking about getting one of those high temperature ovens, don't think that automatically you're going to make fantastic pizza. There's so many other elements to the process, and you should start with the oven that's already been paid for. You already got one in your kitchen. So start on that. Figure out if you really like making pizza. And then if you're like, I really want to try Neapolitan style pizza, then buy a high temp oven.
Yeah. Before I got my Roccbox, I would do it on the Weber barbecue by toasting one side of the dough and then flipping it. And I have to say, it came out pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good move.
When you're cooking at 900 degrees, does it matter if it's gas or wood that's creating the heat?
Okay, so first of all, we're not cooking at 900 degrees, and pretty much no one's really cooking at 900 degrees, because at 900 degrees, food burns. So that whole temperature thing has to be 900 degrees. That's kind of nonsense, right? When there's a fire in a wood-fired oven, yes, there are areas of the oven that are 900 degrees, but that's not where you put your food. It'll burn immediately at those temperatures. Wood versus gas, in my opinion, it doesn't matter. For beginners, I always recommend using a stable fuel source like gas or electricity, because you're going to get a constant and even flow of BTUs, right? Heat. Wood is pretty natural and dynamic, and every single piece of wood is different. Every batch of wood is different. Every time you throw a piece of wood into the oven, it's going to increase the temperature and then slowly decrease. It's very challenging. It's one of the reasons I love it. Again, I never thought I'd have to study the properties of wood, but in order to create a consistent product, I really had to understand what makes wood burn and how to properly maintain and manage a fire. So the size of the piece is really important. The species is less important. The moisture content is extraordinarily important. But
it's a lot. That's too much for me.
It's a lot.
I think I like lighting the gas oven.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
But there is something dramatic about it because especially for the fermentation of your dough, right?
Yeah.
Is this living, moving, constantly in motion thing. And you have to get it to line up with your oven just at the right moment. And when you're baking with fire, you have to nurture that. It's in constant motion. So it's these two different moving targets that you have to get to line up at just the right moment when you put that pizza into the oven. Your fire has to be just right and your dough has to be just right. It's this dance that it keeps me going, man. It keeps me engaged in the process because it's so natural. It's ever changing, and I love it, man.
We made a video when it snowed. The context you're giving me makes me think the video is even funnier. We made a pizza oven out of an igloo, but the way we shot it made it look real. And I actually cooked the pizza in the Roccbox and then put it on a slate inside the igloo, and we had a fire going in the back. And people were coming to my market asking me for the pizza dough because it was supposed to snow the next week, and they wanted to try building this igloo oven. I said, I had to tell them, guys, it's not real.
That's hilarious.
It's not possible.
Is that on Instagram?
It's on my Instagram.
I gotta look back for that.
Listen, I would love to come out to your restaurant. I've heard so much about you from so many people, and it truly is an honor. And I want to say again that the book is amazing. You have QR codes in there that we could scan and actually watch the videos, which is just brilliant.
Yeah, as you're reading. It's so necessary because I've been doing this kind of flying blind for my entire professional career. I never worked at a bakery. I I didn't take classes or lessons or anything like that.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have a mentor. Yeah, I've been doing it by reading books, and a book only gives you so much. There's only so much that the words can tell you, and still pictures can tell you. By having that video, you can see what that technique means in action.
Well, you're an inspiration to me, because I'm going to keep going down this path.
Do it, baby. Do it.
And I would love to stay in touch, and wish you all the best. And thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I can't believe we're done. I have so many questions for you. I want to hear about your operation, how I can help, how we can like optimize your schedule, and
well,
seriously,
that'll be a part 2, man. That'll be part 2.
Anytime.
I will take the drive out. I would love to take the drive out and come down and meet you in person.
You should make that happen.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
All right, dude. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
take care.